Hey, Shawnee from Speed Cube Review for the first episode of the Speed Cube Review podcast. So before we get started, I'm just going to talk about why I'm doing this. Now, there's some things I feel like I can't do on the channel, such as talk about maybe new records or rumors of new cubes, history lessons, just things that would work better in audio than a video of me looking at my hands or just me talking to the camera, because it might actually be longer than a regular video will be. You should be able to listen to this on iTunes as long as you get everything in order. You can also download it and just listen to it directly at speedcubeview.com. There's a tab that says podcast. And you can also watch it on YouTube. YouTube wasn't originally going to be one of my plans, but I did a poll online and about 95% of people said they still wanted YouTube. So I'm going to upload it there. My initial thought with the podcast was to get a few people together and make this a group thing, but I couldn't get anything really organized with scheduling, and editing seemed like it was going to be a pain. So I'm going to do it just like this and have some interviews, hopefully in every single podcast. So let me go over exactly what this is going to be. First, might just be talking about things that are new, things of interest to me. After that, we're going to go through some Cube rumors, stuff that might be coming out. There's also going to be new records. Now, I can't go through every single record, but just big ones that just happened. And then history lesson. There's going to be a giveaway in every single video. This one's going to be for an IV cube, and I'm going to talk more about that later on the show. And then last going to be an interview. For this one, I'm just going to go over who I am just because it's the first podcast and get that out of the way. So it's going to be a bi-weekly show, so every 2 weeks I'll have an episode. If it takes off more and I feel like I've got more information, I could do weekly, but I think bi-weekly might work best. Now, currently, I don't have anything like Patreon to support the show, and I feel like because it's just starting, that would be unnecessary, and I'm really not a big fan of doing that unless people start asking for it. Now, I do support some people on Patreon, but I don't feel like that's something I want to do. Even if I do start later, I will always keep the show free, and no one will ever have to pay for it. If you'd like to support the show, there'll be things under the podcast tab at speedcubeview.com. I'm thinking about just having some links to items I might talk about on the show, like equipment. So there's right now 3 tabs. There's one that's just a PayPal donation if you just want to give once and help support the show and the project. There is an Amazon tab of things that equipment I use, so microphone and other things like that. And then there's also a link just to Amazon, and using that link really helps support. So if you ever shop there, go through that link, or you can even just save that link so you can go to it every single time, and it'll cost $0 to you, but can really greatly help me out. In today's episode, we're going to go over rumors of some new cubes on the market. We're going to go over some new records that happened in the past weekend or two, as well as the history of 3x3 world records, only for the past about 4 years when it really has gotten crazy again. And then after that, we're going to talk about VLS, the history of vault glass slot, and then a little information about myself since there is no interview for this episode. So enjoy! So let's get on to some of these things. First is just cube rumors. Now, there's a lot of cubes that have been rumored, that have been shown, but there's only a few that seem pretty close to releasing, or some big name ones. So Moyer has been teasing a Megaminx for a while, and the one that it seemed like they were building ended up being YJ's a while ago, the Yoo-Hoo. But now Moyer released a new image of their Megaminx prototype, and it has the same bumps that the YJ one has, but much larger flooring holes with a really circular center. So it still seems early in production stage, but they have shown a picture on their Facebook page. The GTS version 2 is another one that everyone's talking about right now. It's much closer to a final production. I get asked a lot if I think it's better than other cubes, and I really can't say because I haven't tried it. The ones that were out in the early production were so early that they didn't even have stickers, and it might have changed a little bit since then. I don't think it has, but I can't say for sure. And even the people who have tried it, like I believe Damien had it from Cubologist, he said that it's not better or worse, it's a different type of puzzle. There's also been a few pictures of the Yushin 17x17, and they say that it should be released soon. Now, I don't know what soon means. Oscar Van Deventer made a 17x17. I apologize if I didn't pronounce that correctly. He has said that it's not the same design, and he doesn't feel like they copied him at all. So one other thing is that she has a hollow Clover cube. So it's a lot like the IV cube, but has 4 petals, but it's hollow. It's like a void cube. And man, it looks really cool. It jumbles and shapeshifts, and I don't even understand how this mechanism works, so I'm excited to see what this is like. Now, there's a lot of other puzzles out there, like the Bosu 4x4 from Moyu, the Valk 4, there's been rumors of that, and a ton of other puzzles, but instead of going through every single one, I'm going to wait till those become a little more of a reality. That way we don't have a multi-year long wait like the Aosu version 2 that ended up not even happening. Now they're going through there, let's talk about some records. There was actually a really close possible 3x3 world record. It was just a national record, but Anthony Paterakis, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly, is from Greece. He got a 4.89 single with a Speedcube Shop Cosmic Valk. And some other ones that just happened this past weekend. Felix Zemdegs got a new world record 7x7 single, which was 2 minutes and 18 seconds. Michael Jaruski from Poland got a 2.62 world record Scube average. So there's a couple other ones like Kevin Hayes' national record for 5x5 average of 51.16 and 1.39 6x6 average, as well as a personal best 5x5 single 47.88. Now, that's all the records I'm going to go over right now. There's a lot of national records that are constantly broken all over the world, but I'm mainly going to focus on world records, or really the ones that are kind of more focused or important, or some more US ones, just because that is where I am based. So a little bit of 3x3 records, because this is the first show and there's not many new things yet to really talk about. I kind of want to go over the history of 3x3 world records, because it's changed a lot. So what I want to do is just start back in 2013. It's not that long ago, but that was the big one that was held for a while. So Mats Valk from Netherlands held that record at 5.55 seconds with the Diane Zanchi, and it held for about 2 years. It was almost beaten by Felix Zemdegs with his 5.33, but he twisted the corner of the Aolung version 1, which counted as a DNF. That was in June of 2014. Now, you can still watch that video, and that's pretty much the reason why Moyu made an Aolung version 2, which was kind of funny. After they made it, Felix said he still stuck with the version 1 just because he liked the feeling of that better. He just kept it on slightly tighter tensions. Howland Burns finally beat it in April of 2015 with the Yushin 3x3, which that was also kind of funny because his main was a Hualong, and I don't remember if he misplaced it or what happened, but that was his main for the competition, but he used the Yushin for that solve. So later on that year in November, this is where things got really crazy, because Keaton Ellis got a 5.09 solve with the Tanglong, and this was at River Hills Fall in Maryland. And just a couple hours later, at the exact same competition, Lucas Eder got a 4.90 with an Aolung version 2. Because it was the same day, Keaton was never recognized as a record holder. I can still remember the craziness on Facebook and the forums of people not really understanding what was going on and if these things were actually real. So that record held for a little while until Mats Valk returned and claimed his title with a 4.74 second solve using the cube, named the Valk, and utilizing VLS, which is Valk Glass Slot, in the solve. It was sort of like a perfect storm of Valkness. He only got to hold on to it for about a month, though, when at Pops Open in Australia pitted Felix against Matt in the final round, and Felix recorded a full step 4.73 solve on his Magnetic GAN Air. In the video, you can see Matt's transition from shock to realization to as much of a smile as he could. I know they're friends, and I'm sure there's no hard feelings, but it was really crazy to watch. This is still the only full step sub 5 second solve in the books, because everyone else has had some sort of PLL skip. Since then, there was also a 4.76 solve from Drew Brads, and the new one from Anthony that I mentioned earlier. Just when records were getting to a point when everyone kept thinking they might be unbeatable, everything's kind of heating up. So that's it for records. Now, one thing I want to talk about today for the history lesson, and I'm hoping to do this every single episode, is what VLS is, what Valk Glass Slot is, since it's kind of relevant to what I was just talking about with the records. Valk Glass Slot is inserting the final F2L pair, which is already paired up, and also orienting the last layer, which will always result in an OLL skip. Now, because it's still a bigger L, you still are doing moves, but it saves about 4 moves on average. This is based off of Winter Variation, which is proposed by Lucas Winter in 2005, which has just about 27 algorithms and requires all the edges to be already oriented. Valk Glass Slot can be done with all or no edges oriented. It does require F2L pair to be matched up though, and so it'd be inserted with like an R, U prime, R prime. Utilizing this type of method is known as OLS, which is OLL plus the last slot. Not many people knew that Mats was even doing this since he never published anything about it. Around 2009 is when he said he started to come up with these algorithms, but it wasn't until 2013 when Roe Hessler printed the algorithms on his website. Metzen contacted Roe, and together they made a YouTube channel called OLS Algorithms. On that YouTube channel, they both uploaded videos going over these algorithms. Roe's algorithms are more based towards the last pair being broken, so instead of already paired up. You can say VLS has 216 possible algorithms, and then HLS or RLS for Hessler last slot or Roe last slot, I've heard them both ways, also has 216 cases. If you're interested in this, I would suggest going and looking at winter variation first, and then going to some other algorithms from there. So that's about it for the new records and history. So let's talk about the giveaway. So at the page for the podcast, so at speedqbu.com, just click the podcast tab. There's a box to enter. What I want you to do is please put something you would like to see with the show, either something that you like about it, something you'd like to see different, or just something you feel like the show needs. There will also be a spot for your name and email so I can contact you. Now you need to actually put an answer to that question. If you just put, "This is my entry," that does not count as an entry. The winner will receive a Chi Ivy Cube that I unboxed a while ago. This is the white one that I actually never took out of the packaging though. All these giveaways are going to be international. I'm hoping to do one every single video. Now, one thing I'm also going to do is just a question time. So I posed some questions on the Facebook page and Instagram, and these are just a couple of them. So Mimi Kiki on Instagram asked, how do you get sponsored by cubing companies like Moyu and Chi? Now, this is actually only a recent development. For a while, I was purchasing all of my puzzles and every so often getting something from companies. It seemed like about a year ago, all of the companies posted on Facebook asking about people who want to be, quote, sponsored. So I filled that out, and a couple of them accepted it and have sent me some things. So the only really thing is to contact them. Now, they only send the demo one, and most of the time it's not a cube I would actually use or shades I want, and often give them away. I only keep usually one of each one just for reviews or comparisons for later on. I want everyone to remember I'm usually purchasing most of my puzzles, but I think for, getting, quote, sponsored, it's something you need to talk to those companies about and just contact them on social media. Amir Kuber, VC on Instagram, asks, what is a non-WCA puzzle you think that should be a WCA puzzle? And this, I would like to say mirror blocks, although there's still not really a speed cube version of it. Moyu was close to doing it when they made their mirror S, but please just make a regular mirror block. BP Cuber on Facebook asked, how much do I practice daily? Depends on the day. Sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's just a minute or two. I always try to get in a few solves at least. And lastly, Lift for Cubing on Instagram asks, about how many orders do you get per day? Well, I'm not a shop, so I get 0 orders a day, except for people asking about ordering stuff that I can't actually give. Oh, there's one more. Okay, so Cube Easy Time on Instagram asks, when will my month of whatever start again? So this talk about the month of Rue, month of ZZ, month of FMC. I realized after I started the month of whatever that it doesn't have to be a specific method, but just something cube related. So right now I'm actually doing month of color neutrality. And I'm hoping by the end of the month, we'll see where things get with being color neutral. I'm already seeing quite a difference. I mean, my average at first, just last week, when I started it, was 26 seconds. Now my average is 21 seconds, and I'm getting a lot of solves in the 16 second range. So I'm already seeing a big difference, but that's going to be what my month of is right now. I think later on I'm going to do some other random ones. I wanted to wait till the last competition was over so I could actually prepare for that. A lot of people have asked for Petrus. I think I'm going to do a tutorial on that, but I'm not going to do a full month of it. It's just something that has never really interested me, but it's pretty straightforward once you understand how to orient edges. So I'll make a tutorial on that sometime in the future. Okay, final part of the podcast is always going to be the interview. Now, we don't have a guest this time. I already have something planned for next time, but for the interview, I'm hoping just to, go through who I am. That way you guys know who I am, because I haven't, of course, talked about myself enough in any of these things, but that way it gets it out of the way. So my name is Sean Bouquet. I am 30 years old, and I graduated with a degree in music education in 2009. I've gone on to teach violin, violoncello, and bass private lessons out of my studio. I love teaching classrooms, but the private lessons kind of took over as my main job. I also play violin at weddings, usually electric violin, and as of a couple years ago, I started DJing. That immediately took off, and I've DJed at least once every other week on average for the past couple of years. Now, I'm getting out of that because although it's a lot of fun, it's exhausting. 13-hour days with constantly having to be energized and in charge of one of the biggest days of a couple's lives is a lot of stress, and I've decided I'd rather not build a huge business like that. So that's what I mainly do. During my free time, I make videos like this, run SpeedQBView, as well as other sites like the original one, which was Violin String Review. Yes, that was my original project, and it's still there. You can see a lot of similarities between SpeedQBView and Violin String Review. I've got my own site, SeanBouquet.com, and some other companies' websites. So I'm kind of a web developer, I guess, too. I don't like to call myself that because I'm not really fluent in a lot of coding. But anyways, that's another thing that I do, and that's really what my life is. You know, I'm married. If you've watched the live stream, you have seen my wife. I have a couple dogs, you know, don't have any kids. I think that's pretty much all we really need to know. I tend to turn my hobbies into profession, which makes it much more enjoyable, but also kind of turns my hobbies less into a hobby. So that's where I am today. Thank you everyone for listening. Hopefully this was somewhat enjoyable. Head over to speedqbview.com/podcast to enter the giveaway and find more information about supporting the show. Thank you, everyone, and I will talk to you guys next time.